Hi everyone. Good afternoon. We're excited for you to be joining us today for our 10th Growth Hour webinar from Shed Advisor about Vision, Traction, Healthy, building powerfully aligned teams. My name is Rebecca Bradley Ray, and I will be your moderator for today. If you have any comments or questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to enter them into the chat box at any time. We will have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So for those of you on the phone, you can just unmute and ask us directly at that time. Now, let me introduce our host for today. Steve Byler is a certified speaker and coach with Maxwell Leadership and a certified EOS implementer who assists leaders and leadership teams in getting clear with their vision in order to get more of what they really want from their business. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll just have to go on record as being publicly jealous because Rebecca's in France at the moment. And congratulations for the opportunity to travel like that, and do enjoy those wonderful food over there in France for all of us who aren't there at the moment. It's good to be with you, our guests, here today on the Growth Hour webinar. And as you know, that's why you're here, that investing in one's personal growth is an important part of really growing as a leader. And all of us have leadership roles, some smaller roles, some more significant, impacting more people, but all of us are leaders. We have influence, and how we use that influence helps to nurture human flourishing in the organizations that we lead, or impacts it in some ways that it limits human flourishing. And what we want is to be leaders who really do bring people together in flourishing ways, flourishing communities, flourishing organizations, so that the world's a better place to live in. We want to do what we can to contribute to that progress. So today we're talking specifically about teams. And for the sake of just kind of defining our terms, teams today are simply when more than one person is working alone. You're working with another person, you now create a team. What does it look like to work together in harmony as a team? Because while there's no I in team, all teams are made up of individuals, and the strength of the individuals on the team really deeply impact the health and formation and the leadership of that team. So we're gonna dive into smart, healthy teams, and we're going to be focusing on these three words that really are essential for healthy teams. Also want to note that I'm open, since we don't have another guest here today, I'm open to just taking questions throughout our discussion. Feel free to drop them in the chat at any time, and we'll bring them in as we have opportunity. Some of them we might save to the end. We will have Q&A at the end, so feel free to jot them in your chat box now, or write them down so you can bring them live at the end. Again, smart, healthy teams, more than one person working together. Also want to note that these principles do apply for the individual. So if you're a one-man show, say, for example, you have one shed lot, you're the sole person on that shed lot, you still have to provide quality leadership for yourself. And if you know anything about yourself, if you're at all aware, you know that we have these inner dialogues sometimes. We have these inner debates with ourselves. And how do we get clarity so that we personally are fully aligned and bringing our energy to bear? So a little bit of conversion, with the language we're using, but the principles do apply for individuals as well. So smart, healthy teams. What does this really look like? We're going to be talking about these three words, but before we go to vision, traction, healthy, I want to unpack three other words to help you understand what we're particularly addressing today. So this is what I call the individual or the personal dashboard. And this dashboard could apply for companies as well, could apply for teams, could apply for nonprofit organizations. But I want to introduce you to kind of three dashboards. And if you're familiar with dashboards on cars, which is kind of what I'm drawing this from, you're driving along, everything's going well, like it was for me the other day, and all of a sudden a light starts flashing on the dashboard, and that's a problem. And then an overheating light came on, and that's a big problem because you don't want to destroy the engine. So I pulled off, to a Starbucks, figured out that there was water spraying all over my engine, So I had to have the car towed. And it's those flashing lights on the dashboard that get your attention. Sometimes the light will just come on. And to be honest, when a light comes on the dashboard, sometimes we ignore it because we know what the issue is and we say it really doesn't matter. I have a truck and the tire pressure light is on all the time. Okay, and it's that way because there's a malfunction in the software. It's not that the tires are low. So now I don't have a clue when the tire actually gets low other than walking around and doing a visual inspection. So the same thing occurs with our kind of ability or inability to respond to the issues that impact our effectiveness. We have to know what the dashboard is. And this dashboard is an important part of kind of being aware of how you're doing personally, as well as how businesses are doing. So I'm going to introduce you to these three measurables, these three things. Two of them we pay attention to a lot. The other one we tend to ignore. So first of all, energy levels. You know that when your computer is unplugged, it won't work. Or if you have a laptop, a mobile, a MacBook or something, you travel with it, you can go for a long period of time with it unplugged. But eventually you have to plug it in to recharge so it has enough energy to function well. And I like the kind of MacBook or laptop metaphor because that's more like us as humans. We don't have to stay plugged in all the time to function. We have these batteries that charge and discharge. But we need to have on our dashboards some level of awareness as to what our energy level is at any given point in time. Is our battery full? Is it nearly discharged? Okay, the second measurable on our dashboard, the second light we need to be aware of is time. All of us have a limited amount of time. All of us work with time constraints. And because we have time constraints, and they're so obvious in our modern world because we have watches, all of our phones. Oh, that's interesting. Phone doesn't even show up on that. Okay. Our phones have clocks on them, and everywhere you go, including town squares, have these big clocks. We're a very time-conscious culture. And so we pay attention to time. And there are literally hundreds and probably thousands of books and blogs out there on managing your time. It's measurable, it's specific, and you can manage it. You can't change the amount of time you have, so you have to regulate yourself to optimize the time that's in front of you. And in the world of business, we have paid a lot of attention to this over the years, managing time, managing our time, regulating our time. And so that our whole kind of industrial system is built around clocking in and clocking out, getting paid for hours invested. And we're deeply conscious of this. We measure it. And then the third one is money. Again, money is very easy to measure. We have, in businesses, we have budgets, we have profit and loss statements, we have balance sheets, we have cash flow statements, cash flow forecasts. We have all these ways of measuring money. And we track its inflow and its outflow and how much is left over. So it's very quantifiable. However, out of these three, probably the one that we have the most difficulty really paying attention to on our dashboard is energy. How much energy do we have? And I just have to tell you this quirky little story. Just recently had the most, in some ways, embarrassing energy experience. And that was back at my camp. And I have these little jackeries that I use to power my lights and my just accessories to recharge batteries and things. And I left it plugged into my truck cigarette lighter charging. So it was taking energy from my truck battery, putting it in this little jackery, portable battery pack, so that I could power the lights in my cabin. Well, what happened, unbeknown to me until a thunderstorm hit and I dashed to the truck, was that it had completely discharged the battery in my truck, which left me stranded. Okay, this happens for humans as well. This battery, this energy pack that we have, that we call human energy, can be completely discharged and leave you stuck. So we have to pay attention to it. It's not just about time and money. Now let's explore a little how this kind of plays out. And this is important for setting the context for how healthy teams function, because each of us bring energy levels, and energy levels impact how the team performs and then how a company performs. So let's think through energy, time, and money. If you have one dash light go on, say, for example, you have this personal dashboard or business dashboard, and you're low on money, you're running out of cash, but you have lots of energy and you have plenty of margin in your time. There are lots of things you can do to save money, additional activities you can do to make more money, to deal with the lack of money. So when one warning light comes on, and let's just for illustration, it's a lack of money, but you have plenty of time and plenty of energy, there are a lot of options open to address the lack of money. Now you might be saying, well, I could use some more money. Well, if you have time and energy, then get creative, manage your energy and your time to drive greater value somewhere. And you can replenish the low money bucket and get it back up to a healthy level, business or personal life. If you're running out of time and you find that you never have enough time to get everything done you need to get done, but you have lots of energy and you have plenty of money, there are ways to solve your lack of time problem. Okay, you can hire somebody to mow your lawn. You can hire somebody to clean your house. You can hire somebody and delegate some of your tasks in business. That gives, you're using energy to hand off, you're using some of your resource of money, and you're helping to buy back time, because time can be bought in this kind of context. You can't buy 25 hours in a day, but you can buy back some of your activities time and focus your time if you have money and you have energy. Okay, now let's think through when the energy light goes on. If the energy light on your dashboard starts flashing and you're running out of energy, you're exhausted, you're fatigued, and you don't have the capacity to really think well and engage well, but you have lots of time and you have lots of money, well, the first thing you ought to do is go take a long vacation somewhere and do a great reset. Okay, you're out of energy, but you've got time and you've got money. Spend some of your time and some of your money on something that does a true energy reset for you. And we're all different on this front. But with time and money, you can, if you're thoughtful and intentional, get your battery recharged. And it's important to get that battery recharged. Now, here's where the challenges start emerging. Often, we don't just have one warning light come on. Usually it starts with one. We're low on money, low on time, low on energy. But often then a second light comes on. So let's just think through this. If we're short on money and short on time, but we've got lots of energy, while it's a bit more challenging because we don't have extra margin in time, we don't have extra margin in money, there are ways to save some money, recapture some time, work a bit longer because we've got the energy to do it. We can begin to address the problem if we have the energy to do so. Now, suppose we have our energy light is flashing, our money light is flashing, but we've got lots of time. Okay, get a second job, work a bit longer, find a way to invest more of your time in generating this kind of activity that gives you energy and that replenishes your money account, your banking account. Or let's say you're out of time and out of energy, but you've got money. Again, you could probably do a really cheap staycation and get refreshed without spending. Or I'm sorry, here you don't need your staycation. You've got money, you just don't have time and energy. You hire somebody to support your work, get somebody to mow the grass, get somebody to do some of your chores or to do some of your work, and be sure that you can refresh your energy. And again, it's much cheaper to spend money on recharging your battery than it is spending money to fixing something that's broken. So be thoughtful, regulate self, and pay attention to these three dashboard lights. And of course, the big problem is when all three lights are flashing. Okay, now you're broken. This is crash time. This car needs to go either to the landfill. Hopefully you don't die and get buried, as a person, but it's going to the hospital. It's going somewhere. This is a crisis. It's dysfunctional. There's no resource. There's no capacity anywhere in these three buckets to kind of help you get back on footing. So what I want to focus on today really is the energy bucket. And why are we paying so much attention to energy? Why are we spending this amount of time talking about energy, especially when it comes to building healthy teams? And when I use the term team, I'm talking about more than one person, can translate to yourself, but also it's not just a leadership team, though we want to pay attention to a leadership team. But if you have a company of 25 employees and maybe 3 of those are on a leadership team, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. So if a leadership team is not paying attention to their personal dashboards, to their company dashboard, kind of around these 3 components, the rest of the company will be suffering. And again, Harvard Business Review, Gallup polls, there are many, many research resources right now that are noting that in the business world today, throughout the United States, really throughout the world, we have an epidemic of employee disengagement. We have people who show up, they spend their time, you pay them the money for their time, they're not bringing their energy to work. Their energy is either run out or they're saving it for something else. So if you think about when you're spending time or somebody's spending time with you, you're compensating them with money for that time. What you really want to be sure is that you're facilitating their energy to be fully present. If you take all of their energy at work and they always go home on the weekend and in the evenings with no energy, they're not going to keep coming back. So we're looking about what is the appropriate amount of energy to be spent at work for the time they're committing and the compensation they're getting. And what we want is we want full engagement. We want all of them. We want their mind, their emotions, their physical energy. We want them to be fully engaged. We want them to be able to rest and reflect and reset so that they come back, again, fully engaged. So I just found some data and really helpful. So let's just take a 25 employee business. And let's say the average salary across that company is $70,000. It means they have a payroll of about $1.7 million a year. Based on very, very minimal, the lowest bar of disengagement. So those studies say that 20% of the workforce is disengaged. That's the lowest number you'll find. 1 out of 5 employees disengaged in a business. Most of the reports are showing things like 60 to 70% of employees disengaged at work or minimally engaged. They're not bringing all their energy into their workspace. So we've got 25 employees in this hypothetical company, a $1.7 million payroll, and taking the lowest numbers of any of these, the lack of people bringing their energy, or the reality that people are not bringing their energy fully to work, is costing the company at least $100,000 a year in profits. And that $100,000 simply is from this math, that if 20% of those employees are not fully engaged, and that 20% of disengagement, again, the lowest level of disengagement, is costing the company about 20% of their salary is being spent for they're not getting their work done, they're not bringing their energy in. That's where the $100,000 comes from. In reality, these numbers are much higher than that. And so, and in some studies, a company that struggles with full engagement in its staff often could lay off 20% of its workforce if the remaining workforce was fully engaged. Okay, now that may not be the solution. Maybe you're responsible for burning them out. Okay, why they're not being fully engaged. But what we want to ask is, how do we build these kinds of cultures? How do we build these kinds of teams, both leadership teams and entire teams and organizations that bring their energy to work, that bring it and fully utilize it in ways that they appreciate the job, they appreciate the work, and they love what they're doing. So we're going to go back now to these three words that we started out with: vision, traction, healthy. And all three of these are essential to helping us understand how we bring that kind of energy, facilitate people bringing that kind of energy. Because let's be honest, nobody really wants to show up and be disengaged. The only reason they want to be disengaged is because engagement takes too big a toll on them somewhere. So how do we get this kind of alignment for powerful, energized teams? Okay, this is in your marriage, this is in your family, this is in your business leadership team, it's in your little group of people in the company. This is everywhere. So, and this is how it applies. We're going to go with these three words now and discuss them: vision, traction, healthy. So first, kind of a high level overview. Let's just assume that you're getting ready to go on a trip. And nobody agrees about where we're going or how we plan to get to where we're going. You're going to have a really difficult time having a successful, enjoyable, and delightful trip. So we have to know where we're going to go. We have to know how we're going to get there. Inside organizations, inside teams, when the team does not have a shared vision where they have had the conversations they need, they have fully engaged in debate to say, yes, this is where we're going, and this is how we plan to get there. What you'll find is that they're burning an enormous amount of time and energy in activities, but they're pulling in different directions. So if you think about a team of horses trying to pull a plow in a field, and you have them harnessed up in such a way, well, maybe just two horses side by side. One of them is holding back, the other one is trying to pull. They're both using an enormous amount of energy. They're burning oats, as it were, and the plow's not moving. The field is not being plowed. And whenever you have leadership teams that are not, they lack a shared vision of where we're going and how we plan to get there, they burn a lot of energy in their pulling in different directions. Okay, and this is, initially, it's wasted energy. Now, what about traction? Traction is simply when you have energy, it converts to movement. So let's be honest, if you have a great car with a big engine, it's fun to burn rubber occasionally, right? It's just, there's a thrill in it. And in my growing up years, there was a young guy just lived across the street from us. And I remember him coming home with his, I think it was a 1969 Dodge Challenger or Plymouth Fury or whatever it was. It had big tires in the back, had a big scoop on the hood, and it had the big Dodge Chrysler engine in it, 454 or something like that. And he could pull out of his driveway and hammer down the gas pedal and just leave a cloud of smoke and black stripes, 2 black stripes down the road. Incredible thrill for me. I dreamed of having a car like that, still do some days. But what he was doing was burning an enormous amount of fuel, initially making very limited progress, burning a lot of rubber, and that's kind of a parallel for burnout. So it's expending huge amounts of energy without making real progress. So efficiency says we only put as much gas on as we can gain traction, but we dial it up as we maintain traction. We build momentum, we build speed, and we don't just burn rubber for the sake of burning rubber. We try to get this translated to momentum. So in businesses, in organizations, in teams, when we're burning enormous amounts of energy with little to no progress, we're committed to a growth strategy, but we're not growing. We're stuck. We keep trying harder and harder and harder, but we don't break through. Again, we're burning huge amounts of energy. Without gaining traction, there's no discipline and accountability for actually achieving our goals. And the energy bucket just begins to plunge. So that's not a healthy team. And then finally, health itself. So a lack of team health usually is represented in a couple of ways. One of them is we have unproductive conflict. We have the same fights over and over and over and over. They never get resolved. We never get back to the same page. Or we're conflict avoidant. We won't have the hard conversations we need to have. And so everybody's holding back. We're burning emotional energy without achieving actionable clarity because we don't have all the perspectives of the team on the table. So really, we need vision, we need traction, and we need to be healthy. A lack of vision, we waste time and energy pulling in different directions. A lack of traction, we burn enormous amounts of energy with little or no progress. And if we're not healthy, we engage in unproductive conflict or we avoid conflict that would lead to actionable clarity with all perspectives on the table. So we really have to address these specific components in order to be healthy. Okay, feel free to drop any questions in that you have that you'd like to see addressed in the chat, or write them down so that when we get to Q&A, but I'm happy to address some of these along the way as well. So let's move now into these three. We're just going to take them one at a time and say, how can teams, what are the things that need to be clear for teams really to begin to be smart and healthy and gain momentum to achieve what they have set out to achieve? First one is the vision component of healthy teams. And this simply answers the question, where are we going and how do we plan to get there? We have to agree with where we're going. If we don't agree with a destination, at least in a general geographic area, we're going to expend energy trying to go to different places. So we have to have the debate and agree on the destination. And usually a founder, when they start a business, they have a vision in their heads about where this is going. That vision begins to change, begins to tweak, and often grows or diminishes based on the experiences that they have along the way. Founders who have them only in their heads really diminish the effectiveness of their teams when they don't get that vision shared by everybody in the organization. It means we have to document it, we have to put language to it, and then be able to communicate it so that others can join us in that vision. So again, I'm an EOS implementer. It's one of the things I do is help companies get clear on their vision for where they're going. We use a simple tool called the Vision Traction Organizer around the EOS model. And it's simply 2 pages. Doesn't like that. Okay, it's simply 2 pages. One is called a vision page, one is called a traction page. And again, I'm going to offer to send you one of these. You can find them online. And there are many other ways of doing this, but this is one simple way of getting clarity on your vision. And I'm going to walk through kind of, at least at a concept level, what kinds of questions teams need to address to be sure that they're adequately on the same page. Okay, you don't have to agree as a team, whether or not the drink of choice is Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, or red wine or white wine. You don't have to agree on those things. Those are not essential to really building healthy energy and momentum inside an organization. But there are questions that are essential. You've got to be on the same page in order to build and lead a healthy organization. And EOS provides a list of 8 of these questions. Fairly simple questions, but often very complex to actually get to the root and be able to articulate them clearly. But whether you're building a personal vision for yourself, a vision for your marriage, a vision for your family, a vision for your business, whether it's a small business, or you're trying to create clarity for a leadership team of a large organization, whether it's a nonprofit, business, or a church, you have to get on the same page with these basic questions. And you've got to get alignment, whatever it takes to get aligned. You've got to get on the same page with some form of these questions. So here are the 8. I'm going to walk through them fairly quickly. And again, if you want a copy of this VTO, Rebecca, why don't you put my email address in the chat? Do use the steve@sjbyler.com. And you can just drop me an email and we'll mail one out to you. So we'll get you a free copy. You can also find it online just by Googling EOS VTO, Vision Traction Organizer, and you get a free copy that can give you at least a place to work from and work toward getting clear on your vision. So what is a clear vision? It has to address these basic questions. And we always start with the core values one. And we've talked about this some on previous webinars. What are the guiding values that you really hold? When you go to making decisions as an organization and as a founder of a business, as a leader of a team, there are values that guide your decisions. Do you value quality over price? Do you value aesthetics, or do you value efficiency? In other words, is it more important that it's beautiful, or that it can be whipped out fast and efficiently? And it's just a few samples. There are people for every one of those values. But if you're going to have effective decision making throughout the organization, we have to know what those guiding values are for the organization. So we make decisions based around shared values. Again, when you have a leadership team who's not aligned with these core values, they'll make a decision that causes a key person who you really value to leave the company. They'll hire people who come in who don't share your values, and it begins to suck energy out of the organization. So getting clear alignment for your team around shared values is absolutely essential to building strong, healthy energy that creates strong momentum inside an organization. Okay, then we also have to know what our core focus is. What is it that we're ultimately passionate about here? Why does the organization exist? Why do we do this thing? And EOS, we simply call it, it's either a purpose, a cause, or a passion, usually one of those three things. What is it that we ultimately care about? And that part of our core focus includes then our niche. Do we do sheds? Are we in in the medical field? What's the space that we're working in? We have to be clear on what that is, so we don't just chase shiny objects and keep expending energy, chasing every little rabbit that comes up. No, we're laser focused. Everybody in the organization knows what our purpose, cause, or passion is, the niche or the lane, the industry that we're in, and we share that. We're locked and loaded and focused on achieving these results. The third question we have to address is what's our target, say 5 years out or 10 years out or some point in the future? Just picture your business as a whole bunch of people lined up with arrows to shoot. They have to know where to shoot those arrows in order for you to be successful. And this 10-year target, again, can be a bit of a moving target, but you don't want it to move too often, because you want people to be able to focus and target their energy, target their resources at the same place you're targeting them. So that 10-year target is just like a bullseye that you debate, get clear on, and put it out there. What's at the core of how we're going to measure success 10 years from now? What are we anticipating? Again, worked with a client who initially, when they tried to put a 10-year target down, they couldn't find another number, chose a revenue number. 4 people on the leadership team. One of them said we need to be at $20 million in 10 years in revenue. Another one said 30. Another one was somewhere around 40. The other one said, I thought 300 million. Well, they're aiming at very different places. Are we going to be a $300 million company? Are we going to be a $20 million company? It deeply shapes how we do business today, the decisions we make, where we invest, the kind of people we bring on board. Are they $300 million people? Or are they $20 million people in their perspective, in their skill sets? So we have to have some sort of kind of shared spot on the wall that we're all focused on. And if we don't have that, again, we have people targeting, some are shooting way down here and thinking this is success. Others are pointing way up there and are frustrated with the people who are aiming down here. And we don't do the hard work. We don't have the hard debates to get together on what that 10-year target is. What are we actually shooting for? Okay, and then we answer that question, kind of, where do we see ourselves 10 years from now, 15, 20, 30 years from now? We have an answer to the question. Now we simply ask the question, who are the businesses or the people? Who are the clients? Who do we need to talk to that will help us get to that place? Again, in some ways, this is very basic stuff, but this is what it takes. You have to answer these questions to get on the same page with the vision for where you're going so it can be shared by everyone. And this is, we call the marketing strategy. Where are we going to spend money on getting which people? What is it we're offering them? So again, in EOS, how we answer the marketing strategy, the target market or the list, we say has three components. There's a demographic, there's a certain type of person that likes your product and that you have built this product for, you're providing this service for, and the more you know about them, who they are, you can spend money talking to those people. And then where do they live? What's the geographical area? Are you serving your town, your state, a 3-state area, a country, or are you trying to be global? You have to get clear. What are your parameters? Where will you spend money for that? And then the psychographic aspect of the list. What are these people thinking or feeling? What are they experiencing that makes them an ideal person for you to talk to? Again, in the shed industry, there's often, I'm frustrated with the fact I can't get my car in my garage. And I just came home last night in a torrential downpour, and I had to walk into the sidewalk because there's all this junk in my garage. I couldn't pull my car in and have a dry exit. Okay, so there's those kinds of frustrations. People want get the garage cleaned out so they can have a dry entry. Don't have to clear snow off the car. What are the psychographics of your ideal customers? And then what are the three uniques that you offer? And this is one place that I want to just note. Many customers are not, many team members and teams are not on the same page with what is it that we actually bring to our customers that we know they value. In the shed industry, everybody brings a dry spot in the backyard. So there's nothing unique about that, but they can get that dry spot in the backyard with the tarp over the lawnmower, with 4 poles and a tarp, with a little steel $900 carport. They can spend $3,000 and have an economy shed. They can spend $30,000 and have a customized brick, beautifully designed structure. And you can't be all things to all people. You're probably not selling tarps and $30,000 custom 10 by 12s. You're somewhere in there. What are the uniques that you bring? How do you differentiate what you bring from everybody down the road, the people around you, and getting crystal clear on our three uniques? What differentiates you? And it may only be the combination of the three that differentiates you. 2, most everybody does, but the third one in combination with those two differentiates you. And then part of your marketing strategy is this proven process. How do we do business with you? And how do we communicate that so that when somebody raises their hand, I'm interested in your product or your service, that you're crystal clear on this is the process by which we work with you. So they can share that journey, and then you have a guarantee to take away the risk from them so that you absorb the risk and they're willing to give you their money in exchange for the commitment for your service or your product. So we have to have a clear plan around how we're going to market, who is going to help us achieve our 10-year target. Okay, then we have the 3-year picture. And this is not so much a list of goals, but it's a description of what we anticipate our organization looking like 3 short years from now. Again, this works for your personal life. What kind of person do I plan to be 3 years from now? What are some measurables? It works for leadership teams, for marriages, couples, for families. The clearer you are about what you're hoping to achieve in a 3-year period. 3 years is kind of what you can visualize. So create this compelling vision in your head and be sure that it has enough definition and description that it's shared by everybody in the organization so they can all see it. And now their energy is focused on achieving that. And that's how we start getting alignment in organizations. So in EOS, we call that the vision component. And then it's the traction component. The traction component now has specific timelines, very specific measurables on what we plan to achieve. And this has 3 kind of components to it. The last 3 questions you need to answer to really have a clear vision. The first one is a 1-year plan. So 12 months out, What does your business look like? What does your team look like? And this has some measurables and then very specific goals. And these have to be measurable so that you know when you get to the end of the year, it's done or not done. We achieved it or we did not achieve it. And we use the term SMART. These are SMART goals. SMART as an acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, with a timeline to it. And that's the future date 1 year out. Okay, but if you simply make 1 year goals and then you go to work for a year, often we struggle to achieve those goals because we have this natural kind of 90-day cycle in our heads where we lose focus, get lost in the weeds, forget what our priorities are. So we need to, every 90 days, set a set of priorities for that quarter. There's a reason businesses run on quarters. Okay, report quarterly financials, make quarterly plans. That 90-day window really flows well with the human psyche. And so we need to know every 90 days what our priorities are for the next 90 days. And we need to be sure they're powerfully aligned. You know, many companies have an issue in one department. They may be great in production, great in their sales and finance, admin and finance side, but right now their sales team is not delivering. So people are waiting around for work to do. And so a company for one quarter may be deeply focused on sales or on the marketing side, and they're focusing all of their energies there to get that up to speed with the rest of the organization so it can be healthy. And everybody needs to know that's what we're focused on right now. If not, your production people will always be complaining and whining for the new tool. They want to spend money on the new tool. And they say, listen, that's not our focus this quarter. Once we have our backlog high enough, then we're going to invest in the equipment to achieve operationally. But right now, our focus is to get the pipeline full, get that backlog built. And so we have to know and we have to agree. We have to share every 90 days what we're really focused on, and that everybody in the company has to be able to share that vision and align with those purposes. That's how we really move the needle. That's how we move the car down the drag strip. And then, honestly, one of my favorite ones, for many people, it's their least favorite, is this issues list. What are our issues? And I've seen a t-shirt recently that I'm still threatening to buy one of these days myself. And it just has the EOS logo on one side. And on the other side, in big letters, we have issues. Okay, the truth of the matter is you have issues. I have issues. And issues are simply all those things that lie between where you are right now and where you dream of being at some point in the future. It's just a list of issues. They're dreams, they're problems, they're things that frustrate you, that tick you off. There's all this list of stuff that's keeping you from being what you dream of being 1 year out, 3 years out. And the better you are at documenting those issues, writing them down, getting them clear, and it's really getting them out of your head and getting them into a list, then it allows you to, every 90 days, prioritize those issues. Which one must we work on now? If you sit down to figure out what your issues are and you don't have a list to start from, you're going to burn a huge amount of energy trying to think all the way through your company about where we want to go. Oh, we're not clear on that. Your issues list is just going to disappear. But trust me, you'll wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning thinking about issues. And one of the best ways to manage your energy is to be sure that those issues, when they come up, they always get documented. They have a place to live. And just imagine this. If everybody in your organization, all the way down to the person who sweeps the floor, when they see an issue or they think of an opportunity, there's a place for that to live. And it can be factored in at the appropriate time when we see all of our issues in relationship to where we're going. Now is the time to solve that one. And people are bringing their issues. We call it smoking out issues, getting them on issues lists so that you can solve those issues in a consistent, predictable, and strategic way, picking the ones that matter, solving those first, because we know where we're going. This is our 3-year picture for it, our 1-year plan. This is our quarterly plan. And these are the issues that we're now focused on in our quarterly rocks. but all these other issues are still issues that we just need to keep paying attention to or pay attention to at some point in the future. Okay, so when we say that you have to be clear on your vision, it can't be a simplistic vision, but it can be simple. You answer these 8 questions with great clarity, and then see to it that everybody in the organization knows the plan. They know the vision, they know the traction plan. Now that allows them to line up behind that plan, and suddenly, instead of people pulling in different directions with individual priorities or departmental priorities being fragmented, everybody is leaning in the same direction, pulling into the same harness. You're going to get movement. You're going to build momentum. It's that simple. Okay. If you don't have somebody who's aligned now and they keep trying to pull a different direction, they probably need to get into a different harness and pull for a different organization. Because this is where we're going and everybody knows where we're going. And we are sharing this weight and this load and pulling together. Again, that's how you manage human energy. And when everybody feels like their issues are being heard, they see the issue they raised on the company's issues list, but they know it's not the priority right now, they can actively expend their energy fully on the current priorities. Okay, so you get a team now that is fully engaged. They're bringing their energy to work, and they're exerting their energy because they know that their personal issues will be addressed at some point once they're now a company priority. If you ignore those issues, you don't allow people to raise issues, and they don't hear those issues, that's one of the #1 reasons for growing employee disengagement. Nobody pays any attention. Nobody cares about me. Nobody values my opinion. Okay, and that really contributes to declining engagement. So answering these questions and having a good plan to accomplish or move together around this clear vision really brings energy, focus into an organization. Okay, got to grab a swig of coffee. And I've just realized we're almost out of time. Traction. What is traction? In summary, traction is once this vision is crystal clear and everybody knows what it is, you can go throughout the organization and you see people with discipline and accountability executing in their space around clearly defined results. In other words, everybody is doing my part, my clearly defined part. I'm doing my clearly defined part to achieve the company vision. I'm not responsible for that part. I'm not responsible for that part. I know what my role is, and I'm leaning into my harness, knowing that as I lean into it, somebody else is being clear and certain that everybody's leaning into their spaces because we're moving this thing forward. And in summary, getting discipline and accountability in an organization really revolves around a couple of things. I frequently get asked the question, how do you hold people accountable? The truth of the matter is you don't. It's hard to, quote, hold people accountable. Accountability is something that emerges when there's great leadership, and one of the #1 jobs of leadership is to clearly articulate the vision, define where we're going, how we plan to get there, and see to it that that's deeply shared by everybody. That's the #1 job of leadership. But then people also have to be managed. And for people to be managed well, they have to be heard. We have to understand what their expectations are. And we have to have these hard conversations till our expectations are shared from leadership, management, and everybody in the organization. Yes, this is what success looks like. This is what I'm responsible for. And this is how we will execute. So I just have 4 things here that kind of help us to achieve accountability. One of them is consistent meeting pulse. And a meeting pulse is simply, we want to be sure that we have adequate communication so that we are connected, not disconnected, but we're also connected and not smothered. If you smother someone, they can't breathe and operate freely. So what we want is connection through meetings. We don't want to waste time at meetings. but we want to be able to consistently connect so everybody's on the same page. Okay, and then we also want to have clearly defined roles. I need to know what I'm personally responsible for. In my role needs to be clearly defined. And the way I see my role and understand my role is exactly the way my manager sees my role. It's exactly the same way the leadership team, the organization sees my role, is the way my peers see my roles, because we're fully aligned around that. So you have to have clearly defined roles in order to have accountability in an organization. And then you also have to have clearly defined metrics. So am I being successful in my role if I sell one shed a day? Or if I sell $10,000 a day? Am I being successful in my role if I build 2 widgets per day? Or is somebody going to be whining because they're expecting 3? And I think 2 is successful. We've got to get on the same page. We've got to share the metrics for success. So if 3 is the expectation, I'm struggling to get my 3 done. I then ask my manager, what do you see as my challenges? What's holding me back? Why can't I get my 3 widgets done? Can you help me? Or the manager will come and say, I see you're consistently doing 2.5. We need 3 from you to be successful. Here's how you need to improve. Here's how we can help you improve. But if you can't have those conversations well, if you haven't defined the expectations. And then also, you have to have communication to maintain those shared expectations. Whether this is a quarterly conversation between manager and employee, between leaders, there's a rhythm, an acceptable, understood, clearly communicated rhythm that when I have issues, I have challenges, I don't know what's expected, here's how we communicate so our expectations are shared. Again, one of my just light bulb moments recently, and I use this all the time now, is uncommunicated expectations are premeditated resentments. And so this is, again, true in literally every human relationship. If I have an expectation from you that you don't know about, for starters, I expect something from you and you don't know it. I'm going to resent that eventually if you don't do it, but I've never communicated it to you. So we don't actually have shared expectations. So in every relationship, we have to be able to communicate our expectations. And if they're different and we can't resolve them, then we have to negotiate, debate, have conversation until we can get to shared expectations. If we can't get to shared expectations, there's going to be resentment. Managers are going to resent employees who are underperforming. Peers are going to resent employees who underperformed because we haven't got to shared expectations. So for real traction to exist, the vision is clear, but now we have accountability through the organization and people consistently delivering on the results. This is like the transfer case, the gearbox that takes the power of the engine, the power of the vision, and converts it without just burning rubber to turning wheels that moves the car down the road. Okay, and then at the end here, quickly yet, healthy. Vision, traction, healthy. And healthy teams have to be healthy. And I'm just called open and honest with a sprinkling of fun. Fun brings energy. Fun builds energy. So it has to be there. You can't just have a dour, down in the mouth, tough, all hard nails workplace. There's got to be a touch of fun. But you have to have this openness and honesty. What is open and honest? Open simply means that the people I'm working with will listen. They will really listen to what I have to say. Their goal of listening is to understand. And they keep asking questions about my perspective until they get it. And I know that they're not going to just brush me off. They're not going to disregard me until they get what I'm saying. And they know I've got it. So this openness means I can actually change my mind. I'm good at listening to other perspectives. This is why we build leadership teams. Somebody has expertise in this. Someone has expertise in this. Someone has expertise in that. But if they're not bringing that expertise to the team, we're wasting our money paying them, and they're not showing up with their perspective. So if you value them, then welcome their perspective. We've got to get those perspectives. That's open. And when people around the table are open, really willing to listen, actively listening to understand, then you can be honest. You can state your perspective. You can say exactly what you see. You can communicate that. And you're willing to be honest because you know you won't be brushed off. You won't be disregarded. You won't be laughed at. They'll actually hear your perspective and be able to engage with that. And the fun just kind of keeps the lubricant in the space because open and honest can be very painful at times. Teams have to have hard conversations and they have to call out a lack of performance. They have to have conversations where the expectations are different. And if we never have any fun together, we don't have this kind of capacity or lubrication to the relationship, and everybody just grates on everybody else. Fun is kind of the oil that helps us have hard conversations. And this is what's essential to healthy teams. Again, vision, traction, and healthy. And when you get this happening, companies really do experience magic. Teams all lined up, pulling in the same direction, rowing in the same direction, headed the same direction toward a shared vision, a shared target, instead of the fragmented stuff that often is in place, where people are pulling in different directions with a different idea and perspective of what success looks like, and just brings frustration, which leads to disengagement and very expensive, underperforming companies that is not a great place to work. So then you have high turnover, which is another cost of disengagement. Okay, so it's time for me to quit. We've got just 2 minutes left here. Any questions that you want to toss in? Haven't seen any come through on chat, but last minute round for questions. Rebecca, you have anything there in front of you?
I actually do. I've got a question about like the energy management side of things. Do you find that energy management is different between different for men versus women in business and in life, I guess, and how they go about that?
That's a really good question. And I've not really looked at it in those two categories. I've spent more time focusing on personality profiles. So people who are very autonomous are high on that trait, have a different way of resting and recovering than people who are very collaborative. And people who are social versus introverted, they have different ways of kind of doing the rest and recovery for their energy. And the same is true for pace. People have fast pace, multitasking kind of profiles. Others are very patient. And wherever you are on that requires a different sort of kind of approach to restoring energy. And then the same kind of on compliance. The people who are strong, rigid rule followers. Okay, we want a lot of those in accounting departments. Okay, we don't probably want them so much on the sales side. And so if we want people who are more open box thinkers, rules, suggestions for other people, let me figure something out fresh. Every one of those profiles has a different way of truly finding ways to restore their energy. And you've got to figure out, just pay attention to what is it that drains my energy? What is it that replenishes my energy? And when we're expending energy, it means we're usually in stress mode, but we're going somewhere. And then we have to rest and recover, which lets it charge back up. And we need this regular discharge, charge, discharge, charge. You don't want to just be in the middle of no man's land. You don't get anywhere that way.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you for your feedback. A few messages here. Appreciate it. And just a reminder, these are on YouTube at The Doc by Steve Byler. You can also just go to YouTube, search Shed Advisor, and you can also go to shedadvisor.com and sign up where you get newsletters and notifications as we do send out this content. And for some of you folks, you like to listen by phone on our audio podcast, dial in And again, that number is 228-591-9706. All the previous podcasts are there. You can scroll through and listen to whichever one you find helpful. Any last questions here before we wrap it up? Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. And listen, I hope all of you have the great joy and delight in working with teams who have this kind of deep alignment around vision, traction, and healthy. It truly is a delight. Goodbye.